Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Lou. You're listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast presented by Betway for all your sports betting activities. Hit the QR code that you see here on the screen or follow the link that you see to the description to the show. Raptors lose tonight 122 to 121 against Chicago. I'm not going to lie to you. I was not very happy watching most of this game. I don't think that the Raptors played their best basketball. I know the score was pretty tight. Obviously, Toronto played a really good fourth quarter and made a huge push, and I love that. I love the fact that Jamal Shead, has re-entered the rotation and sees the floor for the first time in the fourth quarter and plays like his life depends on it. Plays like he's hungry. Plays like he's all out. This man literally was just in Maine yesterday, playing for the Raptors 905, going up and down, but this man was literally in Maine, gets recalled today. I can't even imagine what his day was like. Comes in the fourth quarter and plays like his head is on fire and wills the Raptors back into a game that they didn't have any sort of business being in, and nearly does so, including a banked in three at the end there to make it only a 1-point loss. The fourth quarter was good. Fourth quarter was fun. Fourth quarter was exciting. And you know what was exciting about it? Raptors stopped playing dumb basketball. I don't know what the first half really was about. I don't know what they were doing in the first quarter, which was just genuinely not good on any level. I don't know what they were doing in the third quarter when they allowed 42 points in the third quarter alone to Chicago, who was not like a high-powered offense. You know what I mean? It wasn't like they're super hot. It's just too many mistakes by the Raptors over the course of a game. And I know this season is about, and I've said this a million times, I know this season is about tanking. It's about rebuilding. It's about giving the young guys mistakes, and you got to live with the mistakes and not ride with the results. Fine. I'm not about the wins and losses. Let's talk about the process. The process of giving up wide open transition dunks after you made a basket. You know what I mean? How many times did that happen tonight? How many times did we see Darko storm onto the court calling timeout because his team gets back cut straight for a dunk over and over again? Like, this guy, he had to call the first timeout, come out of the first quarter and come out of the third quarter, right? Like, this team is just this wasn't like, oh, they played hard and they lost. I mean, yeah, in the fourth quarter, that's what happened. But over the balance of the game, this team was playing just completely lackadaisical. And honestly, what's disappointing in a game like this is that it was the vets. It was on the vets tonight. The vets came out and looked sluggish. Kelly Olynyk comes into the game, looks like a lost sailor at sea. I'm swing this way, I'm swing this way, I'm swing this way. Like, what's going on, right? Chris Boucher comes in the game. Yeah, Chris had some good moments in this one. He usually plays well against Chicago, but you also saw him coming in, taking a bad three, getting beat on the back cut. It literally guys face cutting him straight for layups on baseline out of bounds plays. Those are on the vets. Garrett Temple comes in this game. Now, first off, when Darko puts in Garrett Temple, he's like, all right, it's time to show them give me a positive example, okay? Garrett, get in the game and show them how playing hard looks like. Well, okay, Garrett comes in the game, but bro, first possession, the guy goes straight through Garrett Temple and goes straight to the basket. And another play, Garrett Temple tries to drive the ball, gets stripped. Going the other way, fast break. And then Garrett gets an open three. Knox shoots the ball, air ball. It's it just wasn't a night for the vets. It wasn't a night for the vets. If anything, only the guys who were playing well were the young guys. You look at RJ Barrett, who was the only guy creating offense for a lot of this game, plays what he has pretty much done all season, which is just put his head down, go to the basket, and create an impact. Of course, there are always sort of moments where you pick and choose and you say, well, that wasn't a great shot here, or, could have looked in a different way here, or, he charging a turnover here and there. But how many times have we seen this from RJ this season where he is put in this type of effort to try to push the Raptors offensively? And he finished with 32 points and 9 assists. And in the fourth quarter, knocking down some big shots and one-on-one creation. Of course, towards the end, maybe he missed a couple of baskets here or there. Maybe you would argue Fine Grady's the hot hand. Honestly, I can I can live with that because he played hard for me all night. I respect that from RJ Barrett. A lot of these games, nobody else is really joining him. And in the first three quarters, Gradey Dick wasn't really joining him. Gradey Dick was going hard to the basket, one-on-one scoring, which is actually quite exciting to me, was, seeing him sort of face up against wings. And obviously the three wasn't dropping from the start of the game. So he started like taking it strong to the basket and being relentless and getting to the foul line and driving hard. That was great. And then the fourth quarter, when the three started dropping, that's what pushed the Raptors back into this game. That was exciting. Jamal Shead, what he did was exciting. Jonathan Mobile playing some small ball five. That was exciting because quite frankly, the minutes at 5 tonight looked terrible. But between Jakob, who ended up leaving this game because he slipped on a wet spot, more on that later, or Kelly Olynyk, again, just completely I don't know. It's been a tough, bro. It was 5 fouls in 13 minutes. You know what I mean? That's not good. But when Mobile gets to play center, all of a sudden the team looks good again, and he looks good again, and him and the young guys pushing the comeback. It wasn't like, okay, let's put Davion in the game. It's like, no, let's respect the fact that Jamal Shead is such a pro that this guy literally went to Maine yesterday, did a great job leading that team to victory against a really tough G League opponent. And I know no one wants to hear nothing about no G League, but like Maine is actually a really, really good club. I'm pretty sure they were the reigning G League champions too, with a lot of good players down there as well. He leads them to victory on the road, comes back here, doesn't play the whole game. It's like, why did I get recalled if I literally did, if I don't play? And then the fourth quarter, he comes in the game and he's ready to play and he's pushing and he's pushing and he's forcing turnovers. Raptors in the fourth quarter, you know what they did? They started switching pick and rolls, partially because Jakob obviously slipped. They had to go smaller, whatever. But they started switching pick and rolls. You know what that means? That means you have your guard switching on to like Nikola Vucevic. You obviously you're trying to contain the Bulls' dribble penetration where they're coming off the pick and roll. You don't want to switch. The guard's getting downhill, and then all of a sudden the swing, and the Bulls love to shoot threes. They hit 14 of them tonight. Raptors like, okay, fine. How about this? We switch everything. You can't get downhill, but of course that means that fine. Dan Vucevic, who's 7 foot, pretty skilled offensively, is going to be posting up against guards, right? And Jamal Shead's the shortest guy on the court, and the one time that they try to throw it to Vucevic in the post against Jamal literally jumped around him, fronted him somehow, and then poked the ball free and sparked a fast break. That was good. Jacoby Walter playing a big part in the fourth quarter there, calmly knocking, finishing his drives where he's able to pump fake, get all the way to the basket, pump fake again, then score at the basket. Just plays at his own tempo. Really, really smart player. Making the right passes to RJ Barrett for a 3, for example, as well, just before the end of the third quarter there. Like those guys were the guys who played well for me. And, Ochai making a play here or there, doing a decent job. But like, that's what I like seeing tonight. And that's the stuff that I thought was positive. What I didn't think was positive was just like how lackadaisical, and some of the mistakes are just so elementary. And I'm not saying I need the win. But like, guys, like some of the stuff is just like back-to-back turnovers, driving into traffic. Davion Mitchell driving into traffic right after RJ Barrett drove into traffic. And it's like, what are we doing? Why do we have to drive into traffic? Chicago goes to a zone. Toronto looked like really flustered as to how to play against the zone. The shooters were on the floor. Guys weren't really spaced out properly. It just didn't look good, right? Again, the transition layups, coming into this game that Chicago is a team that likes to play in transition, like to fire a bunch of threes. They got a lot of ball handlers on the floor. They're able to really push the pace because they have so many ball handlers and they have such an emphasis on it. So why, after Jakob Poeltl drives to the rim, finishes a layup, are you giving up a transition dunk going the other way? That doesn't make any sense, right? And that's the stuff that's just like, I don't care what it is, rebuilding, tanking, competing, whatever you want to call it. That can never run. I get pissed at somebody doing that in pickup. You know what I mean? Like that can't run in any level of basketball. And there was just too many of those plays in it. And of course, the Raptors made a push. That was cool. That's really exciting. And I really want to talk about that in a little bit more detail, because again, like I think that some of the young players showed you what they had. And honestly, in a game like this, just turn it over to the young guys entirely. Like, if Jakob's not available, let me see Mobile start at small ball center. And maybe you do some funky stuff with switching and maybe playing some zone. By the way, Raptors never play zone, which is also something like even Chicago. You wouldn't say Billy Donovan is like, he's not a bad coach, but at the same time, it's not like he's not renowned for like the huge defensive adjustments and what everything like that. Even him pulling out the zones, like it makes sense for Chicago because that's a team that, doesn't really have great rim protectors. Nick Vucevic is not a good defender. And so you're trying to cover him up at center. We'll try to zone. Makes perfect sense, right? And they're able to throw up different defensive matchups. Toronto rarely does that. Rarely does that. But like, give it to the young guys, let them try. Because like, I'll live with the young guys, making mistakes. Honestly, like some of it is still frustrating. Again, some of that's on the young guys, for example, for not running back or not maintaining floor balance or sort of forcing something that wasn't there, but at the same time, like what I saw tonight from the vets, like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. Garrett Temple, with all due respect, I respect Garrett Temple a lot, but the way he played tonight, like, and just the struggles, like, I need to see Garrett Temple on the Raptors, on the Raptors court. I need to see Davion Mitchell get his minutes cut down if he's never going to look at the basket offensively. And I need to see Jamal Shead on the floor more because he's actually giving you this sort of all-out energy. And if he peters out, then let me go back to some of these other options. You know what? Well, between Chris Boucher and Kelly Olynyk, those guys have eaten off each other's plates. All of a sudden, Chris Boucher's back in the rotation. He's in ahead of Kelly. But neither guy really, for me, is giving me that great sort of like consistent play that I want to see from the vets. More than anything else, I want to see a good example set by these guys. And I still see these guys making this type of mistakes that rookies make. So, you know what? Just give it to the young guys. If this is how you guys want to play, give it to the young guys. Because this was a lot of these guys didn't really perform tonight, and some of them are pretty experienced and they should know how to do that. Now I think getting into more specifics. Oh yeah, by the way, you can leave your questions in the comments. Of course, in the second half of the show, we love to get to your comments, and it is something that I'd love to hear your perspective on these games. Blah blah blah. It's always just really fun, sort of engaging with people, and also just like getting sort of different perspectives. So again, just leave them in the chat. Alex will be looking for those. But yeah, on the whole, I think probably the biggest subplot of the game for me is just like RJ and sort of the Raptors sort of trying to find ways to sort of have RJ highlighted, featured, and to generate offense. I think you can certainly say that there were moments where like RJ was a little too aggressive or whatever. But again, on the whole, 32 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, 11 of 24 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3, 8 of 9 from the free throw line. He is quietly really improving his free throws. I know he's getting extra free throws up and everything like that. That's been a focus for him. And it's good that that's translating to better results because the way he started the season was sort of below him in terms of the free throw line. So 8 of 9 tonight is really good. To me, it's just like the 6 turnovers. I think for me, that's probably where it burned the Raptors the most because a lot of those were live ball turnovers off of drives where he's handling the ball and he's in traffic where he's making a tight pass that isn't there and the Bulls are breaking the other way. Those are ones that kind of were backbreakers tonight for him. But overall, I loved the intensity, the way he was able to drive and just like continuously explore attacking the paint. I think they're trying to work in a couple more counters. I know he's had the little jump floater and stuff like that for a while now too. So, but you are seeing him, for example, on some plays where he's able to sort of drive and take his man into the middle, and the man sort of like tries to, get to the middle first to cut him off, but that allows sort of RJ to sort of spin back and go for the little short floaters. I don't mind those, especially again because of how much defenses are sort of collapsing on him. That does make sense to sort of do more of that. Of course, you're also seeing teams zone against him quite a bit, which is, for pretty much every other team in the league, that's a pretty common counter to, being unable to protect against drives. And so that does sort of throw RJ into sort of a bit of a loop where, again, the rest of the teams get organized. That's why I have to play in a different way. They can't play as much pick and roll with RJ getting downhill. But even without that, I thought RJ did a good job. First play of the game, I thought it was beautiful where he came off the screen from Jakob and threw a nice bounce pass to Jakob Poeltl going to the basket, rolling to the rim. I mean, remember like a month ago, we were looking at Jakob like this guy was giving us like 20 points, 30 points sometimes. And a lot of that was just straight pocket passes from RJ, from Davion Mitchell. And, it felt like that just completely died off. It disappeared for a while. That used to be like 5 of those a game. And now we saw in the first possession, but we'll love to see more of those. Of course, we'd love to see Jakob healthy as well. Again, really scary slip that he had on the court tonight. But I think for RJ is just continue to sort of pick his spots, read the moments that are there, that aren't there. Even the aggression, I know he missed 2 shots towards the end there, and that's something that, of course, it being a 1 possession game, you would like for those to sort of come back. But at the same time, I didn't mind it. I think those approaches were good. I think, again, with everyone healthy, he's definitely not your number 1 option in crunch time in terms of like him getting a shot against that set defense. We've seen that that's sort of like not his forte this season, despite how many reps we've given it. But at the same time, the overall approach, the engagement to the game, even a couple of like moments defensively where, he had the 2 blocks, he had the steal, he's been more active, I feel like, with his hands stripping the ball near the basket. Like those things are all good. And I think with RJ, like, so this is what, a third of the season is gone, right? He missed the first couple, but he's been in, thankfully for the rest of the season here. This is the 8th time he's had 30 plus. He has also got a 29-point game this season. So but 8 times he's gone 30 plus. To put that in perspective, like Scotty has had 10 30 plus games his whole career. And so what I'm saying is like RJ has, like, let's just not sleep on the fact that RJ has had a really, really strong start to the season, and the highs are really high. And of course, the goal is to sort of like make it more efficient, pare it down. But the fact that he can do this much, to me, was really impressive. You know, him sort of confidently knocking down and stepping in for threes. I know I probably on an average night, I probably would like to see him take more than 4 threes, but we know most of these threes are not they're never pull-up threes, right? When he's come off the screen, he's always driving. That does make him a little predictable in crunch time. You know, obviously that's part of it, but mostly he's catching and shooting for 3, and on those he's actually been pretty solid this season on catch and shoots. Obviously, when he has more playmakers around him, when he doesn't have to handle the ball as much, he can sort of catch and shoot for 3 a little bit more. Those have been good. Him pushing in transition, all that's good, and I do like that he's working on his free throws. The passing too has been solid. Like, it's been good almost, right? Like, I think the only reason I say almost is because there are some turnovers that comes with this, but ultimately, like, I'm okay with sort of living through the process of RJ sort of exploring his game. That part was exciting to me. Gradey Dick, honestly, the start of this game was just like a lot of firing from 3. You know, like a lot of those weren't going. He stepped out of bounds one time trying to curl in for a 3 as well. You know, it just, the 3-point line wasn't really kind to Gradey to start this game. But at the same time, I think what I liked from Gradey was just the competitiveness. Like, this guy just does not back down. He just fights. And whatever, like, who are you going to back down against Chicago? You know what I mean? It's not like, oh man, Kobe White's over there, I got to back down. Josh Giddey, I got to back down. You know, like, that's not happening. But at the same time, when the game isn't going, you know, in his favor, he still has that mentality to continue to attack. He's almost got a similar stubbornness as RJ to me in terms of Grady's mindset to score. And you know what? When shots become hard for him and they're not dropping, he just gets more aggressive, which is a really impressive stat, or just a trait for me. Like, you know, him going one-on-one against some of these guys where he's facing up and he's just using a quick first step to sort of get a little bit of something against his man. And sometimes he drives all the way to the basket. He sacrifices his body a lot going into these drives to the basket as well. 6-7 free throws for him is no joke. He definitely takes a lot of punishment going to the hoop. But of course, you know, that quick first step where he's able to sort of ball fake or sort of jab step or whatever, and he's just able to sort of get by his guy for a moment, and then he pulls up with the little mid-range jumper. Those are exciting to see as well. And of course, the biggest thing is the 3-point shots got to drop. That did end up dropping in the fourth quarter where he knocked down 3 threes. Unfortunately, he couldn't get the game tying 3, I think, to drop at the end there. But ultimately, at the same time, it's like, you know, that was a pretty heavily contested shot. And when it comes down to crunch time, defenses are going to know sort of what Gradey has in mind. Just like how in crunch time, teams are going to know what RJ has in mind, which was driving to the basket. But again, that similar stubbornness to sort of keep going at it. Because the way Gradey started this game, no way should he have taken 20 shots. But he ends up 9 of 20 from the field for 27 points. And ultimately, it's a plus 15 in this one. Super efficient. Now, the things to improve with Gradey are the defensive toughness. I feel like, yes, he took a charge. He's willing to sacrifice his body. He's willing to compete, but there's also guys sort of walking around him, getting to the rim for layups. And, you know, those things, I think for him, like, he just needs to continue being sharper on that front. He commits a lot of energy on the offensive end as well. That's always something to consider. You can't just compare like Grady's defense and RJ's defense versus like Davion's defense. Davion's not really doing much offensively. He can commit everything he wants on the defensive end versus RJ and Gradey have to do so much of the creation. Gradey running laps around the team, RJ sort of sprinting back and forth, trying to drive the ball, take a contact, you know what I mean? Like, that obviously requires a little bit more energy. But ultimately, I would love for both of those 2 guys to improve defensively. And then, honestly, my star of the game tonight is just Jamal Shead, man. Again, this guy only played in the fourth quarter, right? Darko was trying anything tonight. Darko was calling the snap timeouts. He was angry at the team. You know, he really obviously wanted them to sort of play a lot sharper to start the game. They didn't do that. He called the first timeout. Then he had to call the second timeout because it was like dunk after dunk after dunk. Like, Chicago had like 6 or 7 dunks in this game. Then coming out of the third quarter, he has to call the timeout again because the Raptors once again do not execute coming out of the third quarter on the exact same things where Chicago's breaking out in transition and they're getting open threes and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then of course he has to burn the timeout because Jakob hurt himself. But like, he was trying anything though. Like, you saw some Kelly and Chris Boucher, you know, big lineups. You saw some, you know, obviously Mobile and Jakob in the starting 5. That's already kind of experimental as it is. Obviously the Raptors need more size in the starting front court, but it hurts you a lot because Mobile does not really know how to play as a 4 right now in the NBA. You saw him try to create his own offense at times, try to initiate, and that was a turnover waiting to happen, right? So of course that sort of takes time to get used to. Also having two sort of complete non-spacers as your 4-5 combo, that's I mean, it's unheard of nowadays in the NBA. Teams typically play 5 out and a minimum 4 out 1 in. That's 3 out 2 in. Like that's very rare in the NBA, and that creates a lot of difficulty driving the ball, or even being able to sort of have Gradey, for example, come off of curls and screens. These guys can really easily clog up and zone up the middle because they don't have to worry about Jonathan. They don't have to worry even as much about Jakob in those moments. But he tried, and at the end of the game, he goes from having 2 bigs to having just 1 small ball big in Mobo at center with a bunch of guards around him, right? Like he tried a bunch of things. He even threw in Garrett Temple with the 3 minutes. And again, no disrespect to Garrett, but like those were some 3 tough minutes, especially because I watched the warm-ups and even the assistant coaches were doing a good job defensively. So it's like ultimately, you got to get to a point where you try everybody you got. And obviously you just signed AJ Lawson. That's not necessarily going to work. And of course, the Bulls have done a good job zoning and taking away the paint. So, and you're trying to create driving lanes for RJ. So Bruno's not in the game. Okay, fine. Then who else are you going to try? Jamal Shead comes in and he just gives you everything, man. This guy gives you everything. He's on the offensive glass. He is attacking sort of gaps and getting to the basket and looking to score off the dribble. He's knocking down the catch and shoot threes. He obviously knocked down the 3 at the very end there too, which was ultimately academic, but still knocked it down as well. The rebounding, the fact that he's fighting Vucevic, who's like way bigger than him, to get the steals and going around. He's helping other guys on defense. He's making the instant reads off these offensive rebounds. Both times he swung it out to Gradey Dick for threes. Like Jamal was like, the only thing with Jamal was I wish he played more of this game. And I get it. Of course, the Raptors are trying new things right now. But based on a game like this, I probably will try to get up another point guard in my lineup. Like, I don't think I would probably. I mean, first off, they can't start this lineup again because Jakob just got hurt, which the season is cursed. But like, I would love to see him back in the rotation to some degree, because that's like, more than anything else, that's the type of fight and energy I love seeing, man. Like, I think Jack said it on the broadcast. He's like, I haven't seen that. It feels like Kyle Lowry's out there, and that's like the highest compliment you can pay anybody on the Raptors, wearing a Raptor uniform. Like, and that's what Jamal did in the fourth quarter. That was Lowry-esque in the fourth, and the energy, that sort of fight, that's sort of what brought the Raptors back to life. But ultimately, they didn't deserve to win this game because they made too many mistakes. And honestly, like, I know December 15th just rolled around. That means a lot of contracts around the league are eligible to be traded again. And we've already seen some of those trades. Obviously, Golden State picking up Dennis Schroeder. You've seen, what was the other trade? Oh, yeah, Indiana picking up Thomas Bryant. Like, teams are starting to move guys. And that does mean that you kind of have to showcase some of your vets. And that's fine to some degree. Eventually, we'll see Bruce Brown in sort of some capacity. We're going to see, how that sort of looks. But, like, ultimately, the future of this team is with these young guys. And if they played hard like this tonight and they lose, you will never really hear me come up here and be upset at that, because I can live with that. What I can't live with is some of those mistakes. And I know Darko agrees, because this guy, he burned almost every single one of his timeouts, calling those snap, timeouts because he was angry with the team. Because again, the execution, I don't care if it's tanking, I don't care if it's rebuilding. If it's professional basketball, that was not acceptable. And it was some really ugly basketball out there tonight. Last thing before we take the break and take some of your questions. So Jakob ends up slipping on a wet spot in the start of the fourth quarter. He had literally just been reinserted into the game for like a minute, and I didn't even see like a slip or anything like that. But basically, he was just trying to just making a basic movement in the lane, slips on a wet spot. His left leg kind of crumples in a really awkward fashion below him. He's immediately down. Ultimately, he's able to walk off the court under his own will and his own ability, but he heads straight down to the tunnel, to the locker room. Obviously he's ruled out, with the groin, strain. We'll see, but it does remind me of like DeMar. DeMar had basically the same play, slipping on a wet spot. That cost him like probably five weeks. Pascal had a similar thing too, where he slipped in a wet spot, and that cost him sort of like roughly around 5 to 6 weeks as well. That was in, I think, the 2019-2020 season. Now, of course, teams back then, they could sort of weather it. Right now, the Raptors obviously are not anywhere close to sort of their former glory, but at the same time, on top of all their other injuries, like Jakob was probably the one guy that they could not afford to lose. Like, Jakob does so much for them on both ends. And tonight wasn't a great game for Jakob, whatever. But ultimately, like, they could not have afforded to lose him tonight. And hopefully he's okay. But just based on sort of how that thing looked, it's so unfortunate because you don't want to see it happen to Jakob too. He's having a career season, so we'll see. I'm sure we'll get some updates after a couple of scans and things like that. Raptors will have some time here. I think they're home this week, so they'll have more time to sort of like get a chance to go to practice and we will see sort of what his status is. But ultimately, a bad situation goes worse once they lose their starting center as well. So yeah, it was a tough one. We are going to take a quick break. We want to get to your questions. And of course, if you're watching the stream and you're, honestly, just like the stream if you're watching. It costs you nothing. Hit the like on the YouTube. Again, it helps again with telling the algorithm that Raptor fans are looking for hello and welcome. So we're going to take that quick break, hear from some of our sponsors, and when we come back, we will take your questions.
Hey, man.
Hey, buddy.
Just recently hit the big 4-0. What about you, bro?
A little more recently 4-0, but we are both in the 40 club.
Let me tell you, man, being an adult really comes with its share of challenges.
Definitely. I think both you and I are homeowners, and I think we're both also dealing with mortgages in life.
Yeah, man, mortgage rates, choosing the right terms, dealing with paperwork, it can be really overwhelming,
I still don't know how that works.
Well, listen, that's where our friends at Dominion Lending Centers come in, man. They make the whole process simple and stress-free. Whether you're renewing your mortgage, hunting for the best rates, or if you just need advice, they're here to help, bro.
You know what? I am looking for that advice, and I think that's why I'm going to visit www.dominionlending.ca.
Yeah, man. www.dominionlending.ca. Take the guesswork out of your mortgage and step into financial confidence with our friends at Dominion Lending by our side.
There we go. Okay, it is now time for the Tangerine fan inbox, and I want to let you know that Tangerine is the official bank of the Toronto Raptors, foundational partner of the WNBA and NBA Canada, and of course, they're not just fans of basketball, they're fans of basketball. They're fans of fans who have their own nickname for each guy in the starting five, or fans who stand 5 inches from the TV all game, or fans who can recreate every player's layup package while sitting on the couch. If you're hearing this, there's no doubt in your commitment. Fans like you are at the heart of what makes this game great. So for the Raptors' 30th season, Tangerine is turning the spotlight from the court to the stands and celebrating the way Raptor fans support their team, because this is how we fan. To learn more, visit tangerine.ca/basketball. Okay, Alex, what do we have for questions? First one from LOL, I'm funny. Question, realistically, if Scotty and IQ were fully healthy, does the win/loss record change much? Is this a playoff team? That is purely hypothetical. I think you can look at the pieces on paper and say that a fully healthy version of the Raptors will be fairly competitive. Could they be like Atlanta Hawks level competitive? I don't know. I mean, Atlanta's actually gotten off to a pretty good start. They got some pretty good wins. Obviously, they beat New York in the NBA Cup. They also had beaten Cleveland, for example, back-to-back, which was really impressive. But yeah, fully healthy with the Raptors. I thought the Raptors could probably touch like high 30s in wins if they were fully healthy. But again, like that literally has not happened at any point this season. So this is a purely hypothetical, experience. I think more than anything else, like this team needs to be a lot better defensively. And tonight you saw so many gaffes tonight, like even just simple transition, they couldn't guard. But yeah, on paper, when they're healthy, they clearly have some talent, especially offensively. But it's purely on paper, because honestly, right now, that's not great. But yeah, honestly, like a healthy season, the Raps would have been okay, but we're not getting that this season. Next one from Clayton. Nice applause for Chuck. Thanks for tweeting the video. Yeah, if you didn't see it, so the Raptors, again, as part of their ongoing 30th season anniversary, they're highlighting some very important people in the organization. And of course, we've seen that largely with the players, of course, like we saw Vince's jersey get retired. That was, again, a phenomenal moment. And we've seen some former Raptors sort of introduce Damon Stoudemire, Tracy McGrady, TJ Ford, like Charles Oakley, like Dee Brown, Del Curry, like a lot of like former guys have come back, and that's not all of them. Mo Pete as well, Alvin, of course, all that's great. But I think so much of sort of the fan viewing experience is also through the mediums of which you receive the Raptors, and largely that's through the broadcast. And I mean, Chuck is Chuck Swirsky, obviously, for people who weren't around, and Matt Devlin is now, I think, 17 years. We did the interview with Matt as well, and Matt's phenomenal. We've been really blessed to have really great sort of like broadcasters to have called the Raptors games over the last 30. But Chuck was here for like 10 years, and um, I think with Chuck, like he brought such a sense of excitement. What reminds me of like nowadays, you hear Eric Collins for the Charlotte Hornets, and the guy loses his mind all the time, and he goes viral all the time for the sort of calls. And sometimes I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I feel like it's over the top. That's what I felt like Chuck Swirsky was like back in the day for Toronto. Like between that, like that I mean, first off, he called the entirety of Vince's tenure in Toronto. Would have been cool, for example, to have him available here in Toronto as part of that sort of celebration for Vince. Although it's not like the Raptors spared any real expense for how they celebrated Vince this year for the jersey ceremony. But like, yeah, Chuck really brought a lot of excitement, and when I think about some of the, great Raptors that have sort of, worn the uniform, whether that's Vince, Air Canada, I've just seen Man Fly, all that kind of stuff, or, Chris Bosh with the sick, wicked, and nasty, and, Mo Pete hitting the shot against Washington after Michael Ruffin threw it in the air for no reason, and the Onions, baby Onions, like all that kind of stuff, like, yeah, it was really cool for them to have tributed and honored Chuck Swirsky. And I know it meant a lot to him. I think it took him a lot of sort of like composure to sort of, not break down in that moment, because that did happen in the second quarter. And obviously he's got another 2 hours of work to go from that point. But yeah, just it was great to see him. It was great to see Jack and Chuck sort of catch up before the games. I mean, like they had shows on the radio as well. I mean, long before the Raptors show. Back on the Fan, it was Chuck and Jack, and he's just, it's just a part of the history, and I know he was immensely popular, and obviously we've been so fortunate to have a guy like Matt take over, and Matt has done an incredible job of making the broadcast his own, but as a basketball fan that sort of grew up in like the early 2000s and watching the Raptors, like Chuck was actually such a big part of sort of making those games exciting. So shouts to Chuck, man. That was really fun. What's Alex saying here? We're gonna work on getting Chuck on the pod. Yeah, we can get Chuck on the pod, man. No problem. Shouts to all our broadcasters. We've actually been so blessed, really. Next one from Arsh. Question: if Jakob is out for some time, would you like to see Shamshay get some minutes purely for development? I think the answer is no. I think Darko was pretty clear with sort of the start of the season when he talked about that Ulrich's challenge this season is to sort of like learn what it means to be a pro and sort of like adapt to the culture change of, coming over this year. Like basically this season should not necessarily be looked at as a pro season for Ulrich. It should be looked at almost like a collegiate season for Ulrich Shamshay, because we're talking about the youngest prospect that came out of last year's draft. This year's draft. We're talking about a player who, was newer to basketball. Again, there was the interview that I did after Summer League where the post game scrum, and I requested actually to get Ulrich Shamshay, because we had talked to everyone else at Summer League, right? We was down there for a week, and we had talked to everyone else, and the one guy we hadn't talked to was Ulrich. So I was like, can we get Ulrich? He had a good game, whatever. And the PR staff was like mad nervous. They were like, like just be really patient with Ulrich. Like make sure you ask him questions slowly. Like don't sort of like overcomplicate things. And, he comes on the mic and he was like so excited to talk to everybody. He had a great energy. And one of the things he sort of, just revealed was just like, I come from a family of farmers. And I asked him sort of about like what he was farming back home. And it was like, like that's sort of like what his life was like 3 years ago. And to sort of have this like miraculous journey where now he's in the NBA and obviously he's with the 905, but still, it's just going to take a lot of adjustment. I don't really want to throw him into the fire right away. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. He's not ready to play NBA basketball right now. If you watch some of the 905 games, not just the highlight reels where they show you the blocks, because like he definitely has the talent for that. But of course, if you only show that, that's not going to show you the balance of the game. You see a lot of sort of like, in terms of the speed of the game, reading the game, all that kind of stuff. And if you want to throw the season out the window and say development and say we can do anything, fine, I guess to some degree. But ultimately, I just don't think it'd be even productive for him. 905, I think, for this season is a really good spot for him. Like last game, for example, against Maine, I think he had 2 points. You know what I mean? Like, and again, I'm not expecting him to be like Hakeem walking out right away. Like, that's not what's happening. But this is basically his first year of college is what he's doing with the 905 right now. And I don't want to expedite that by throwing him up and having a guard like Nikola Vucevic and get put into a million pick and rolls. Like, that's not going to go well. So yeah, for the other young guys, it's fine. But again, like those guys, even before coming into the NBA, has had a lot more development. Like a Jamal Shead has played 3 years in college for a winning program. Jacoby Walter has played for like, some pretty like a winning program at Baylor, and before that was in a McDonald's All-American game. Like not was he an All-American? Maybe he was, but I know I saw him in the Nike pro game or the USA versus World game or something like that. But regardless, like these guys have been playing ball for a long time. Is my point. Like this guy's named after Jordan and Kobe. Like so, yeah. I mean, maybe in April. Depending on how the season goes, maybe we try it out then. Obviously, G League kind of wraps up before April anyway, for the most part. So maybe, but until then, no. Just like sort of like you take this season as what it is and be a little bit more patient with this. Next question. G asks, when are IQ and Bruce back? Yo, honestly, the funniest thing is seeing Darko get asked about this every pregame, every practice, post games. You don't usually ask about injuries unless like an injury happened in the game, like Jakob, for example. And there's there are no updates. Obviously, we've seen what Scotty posted, and that sort of hints towards the Raptors being closer to sort of getting those guys back. I would love to see those guys back on the court. I think it really is a big question as to sort of whose minutes do Bruce Brown even eat into, because I'm not trying to see less of Gradey. I'm not trying to see less of Jacoby. I'm certainly not trying to see less of Ochai. Those are obviously the guys that he would be eating into the minutes from. And then IQ, I just need IQ on the court. I would love to see IQ sort of like spend time with RJ and sort of get into rhythm. He's a big part of this team, and this season he hasn't just been on the floor. But they continue to say no updates. Literally, Darko was asked pregame today, what are the updates there? And he said no updates. So yeah, I wish there was a better answer than this, but if I had to predict, I probably would say like before the year's over, but there's only like 2 more weeks, so we'll see. They do have a lot of games though between now and then. Next one from Glass Volta. Where can I cop a Bolway sweater? Oh man, this is not just any Bolway sweater, because I think if you notice on the side here, you see that signature right there? That's from Scotty Barnes, baby. That's the SB. Yeah, this is a special gift from somebody who actually I can't even reveal how I got this sweater, but I believe this was made for the campaign that Scotty did with Bolway. So yeah, I can't necessarily reveal how to get one, but I do like to flex that I do have this one. But it was a nice gift from a friend of the program, and yeah. Otherwise, I don't know. Let Subway know, man. If you think the merch is fire, let them know. So maybe they'll give you one. You never know. It doesn't hurt to ask. That's actually the number one thing I've learned from Alex Wong in terms of merch and how to get that stuff is just does not hurt to ask. Just inquire, and maybe they'll sort of hit you up. Next one from Jinto, Zhinto. Okay, all right, like Shinto but with the Z. Is there value in trading Davion, or should we re-sign him? I don't think there's that much value in trading Davion because he just got traded, for example, right in the summertime, and that was part of a Jalen McDaniels deal where the Raptors got more picks than that. So that's not to say that he has negative value. Clearly, he brings a lot of defensive end. Like one of the plays I really like seeing today, for example, was him sprinting back in transition against Kobe White. Or it was either Kobe White or Ayo Dosunmu. But he like jumped up, swatted the ball, and then knocked it off his head out of bounds, begged Darko for the challenge. Darko backed him up, and it was true. He did ultimately secure the loose ball off of the guy's head to give a Toronto possession. Like defensively, it gives you a lot. Offensively, like it's been a while since I've seen this style of point guard. Like, they've kind of have been phased out the game to a large degree. Obviously there have been defense first point guards, and that still exists in the league today, but not to the degree where like he just doesn't really look to score. And I think that for me, like I think I'd be okay with sort of keeping him around. I'd also be okay, obviously, if the Raptors moved on. But ultimately, at the same time, I think he's a good culture setter. He talks, a lot to the rest of the guys. I think he can play. I mean, certainly he's good enough to play in the rotation. His defense is phenomenal. But I would love to see just a little bit more offensively, even if it's just simple catch and shoots. But like even being aggressive to look to attack, because like you even see Jamal come in. Jamal's not really like he's not a scorer. He's not even that much of a creator, but he looks and he's involved. And if you're not getting sort of play creation from your point guard, that puts such a huge strain on your offense, and yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, yeah, maybe if a team really needs a defensive stopper at point, but again, like for any other team he joins, he's still going to need to sort of bring the catch and shoot 3 element in addition to the defense. The defense alone does not get you in the rotation in the NBA nowadays. It does for the Raptors, because the Raptors obviously are, the bottom 4 team in the league, but like most of the teams you're not going to get in. So, I mean, I guess Sacramento did play him and they did have a lot of point guards, but they also did trade him for Jalen McDaniels. So, I know that was a salary clearing move. It wasn't just because they wanted Jalen. Clearly they didn't, but yeah. I don't know. Davion's it's so hard because like he really is very admirable defensively, but I just need more offensively, man. And any team getting him would need more offensively. Any other questions? Josh says, hey brother, love the show. Appreciate you, man. I know as fans, we have to understand that we're in a rebuild, but at times I do find myself wondering, is Darko getting the max from the players individually and as a group? Honestly, in a game like this, I wondered the same thing. And it's not like Darko's not the right man to pull the most effort out of them, right? Like, I don't think that that's something I wondered tonight. But what I did notice tonight was just a lot of Raptors didn't look that great. And I'm like, you know what? Let's look at the timeline of this, right? So everybody had obviously kind of a blank schedule for the last week because they didn't know if they were going to make the NBA Cup and also which games that they're going to get rescheduled into the NBA Cup. So obviously those were rescheduled, right? Toronto was probably one of the luckiest teams in the whole entire league because they played the away game in Miami and then they got a bunch of time off and they got a whole weekend off and then they played here Monday at home, right, against Chicago, which is not even that good of a team. So already a good draw. So Raptors play in Miami on Thursday. Got a couple extra days in Miami. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, well, we're not immediately going to come back. And it's like, fine, right? Give us some time off, all that kind of stuff. Nobody who works the job doesn't like having time off. But, like, that part of that's also you got to come in, like, refreshed and look good. And Toronto tonight, they came out sluggish. They came out unfocused. And that's, to me, it's just like, you can be the coach that rewards and that leads with positivity all the time, but I need the players to be accountable to that positivity. And I think on the whole, the season, the Raptors have shown you that, again, that the players, they like Darko. I mean, what's not to like? He gives you a lot, right? He gives you love. He showers you with love. He never calls you out in the post game. He'll come to your channel. He'll back you up with the challenges. He'll give you minutes, even if you're not necessarily performing. Like, very few players get benched unless they're Chris Boucher. But at the same time, like, that means you owe him the best effort then, because if you're going to show you all this love, then you got to, give him some of that back. And I'm not expecting all 82 games for guys to, like, you can show up night after night. But you're telling me you played on the 12th in Miami, and then you got a whole bunch of time off, and you're coming home, and then you kind of put up that. I mean, whatever. They made a comeback in the fourth quarter. That was great. But the first 3 quarters, that was not acceptable what the Raptors did. And to me, it was just like, I don't know. Like, this is obviously a night and day because, like, if you have somebody like an Ime Udoka, for example, or even like a Nick Nurse, right? Like, this guy's yelling at you all the time. They're going to, they get into you, they yell at you, they tear into you. And, not saying that this team is better just because they got yelled at. Like, that's, who can tell you that for sure? But I certainly don't think that that approach worked previously. But at the same time, it's like, okay, if you know what I mean, if you got the A+ treatment from work, then work's gonna expect A+ production. And tonight that was not A+ from a lot of the guys. So yeah, that's it for the questions. I appreciate people for sending those in. Yeah, I mean, again, like, hopefully Jakob's okay, but with the way he went down, I just don't think that's like a day-to-day thing. But my fingers are crossed. But hopefully Jakob is okay. Hopefully the Raptors do get other bodies back from injury as well. Hopefully we see Scotty Barnes back too. I think Scotty got some shots up maybe before I think Darko said he went through shoot around. I didn't see him sort of get shots up pregame, so That's all I can necessarily report, although I wasn't there like my usual amount of like 3 hours early, so we'll see. But regardless, hopefully we get some bodies back, because right now we're kind of back to where we were at the start of the season. RJ and Gradey are trying to do everything they can to score, but of course they get into close games and then they lose. And that's okay to some degree, but also at the same time, I would love to see some healthy bodies. So thanks everyone for listening. I'm going to hand out the 3 stars and give out the awards before I go. Your first star in this game, honestly, man, I'm going to give the first star to Jamal Shead. Jamal, I loved what you did tonight. 10 points, 12 minutes, 4 of 4 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, 4 rebounds, including 2 offensive. 2 of those immediately went into assists, had 6 assists, had the steal, jumping around Vucevic to get it. He just played all out. I love seeing that effort from Jamal Shead. I know he hasn't given us this all season in terms of like consistently, but I know if this is in him, I would love to see him give him the chance to play like this more often. This was awesome. Your second star, give that to RJ, 32 points, 5 rebounds, 9 assists, a steal, 2 blocks, 11 of 24 from the field, 8 of 9 from the free throws, 2 of 4 from 3. I just think that like he had so much on his shoulders. The entire game plan on Toronto side was to give him the ball getting downhill, and the entire game plan from Chicago side was to prevent the paint and take away RJ. And the stubbornness, the relentlessness to go time and time again, to attack time and time again, to never sit back, I respect that a lot, man. And again, that's his 4th 30-point game already of the season. That's super impressive. And then your third star, we have the Gradey Dick. Obviously, the start of the game was slow, couldn't hit the 3, still went hard at the basket, had a couple of dunks as well. That was cool. Nice cuts off of Jakob, playing out the high post, but came alive in the fourth quarter, 27 points on 9 of 20 shooting, 3 of 9 from 3, 6 of 7 from the free throw, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, no steals, plus 15 in the game, which honestly it reflects the fact he was on the floor for the entire fourth quarter, it felt like. So those are your 3 stars. Your Gerald Henderson award winner, probably Julian Phillips. He like immediately came in the game and got 2 transition dunks. It was like just bewildering watching the Raptors. Had cut, for an and 1 as well off a baseline out of bounds play. But yeah, 10 points in 12 minutes for Julian Phillips. That's a really good production from him. But honestly, you could pick anyone off Chicago's bench. Like Jalen Smith had a huge game. Matas Bazuelas, I thought he had a really nice game for the rookie. THT, Taylor Horton-Tucker. Bro, that man looks like Charles Barkley from 2000. He looks like Charles Barkley from like 1999. Like, it's crazy. He looked like Houston Rockets James Harden out there somehow, or Charles Barkley somehow. But was effective going to the basket. And Alonzo made a big 3 at the end there to sort of clinch it. But I'll give it to Julian Phillips. And then finally, your most important guy. Remind you that most important guy award is brought to you by Greta on 590 King Street West. They're the #1 hangout spot for pregame, during the game, postgame. And of course, it's not just about the what sports watching experience. It's also the fact that they're the #1 barcade, and you can switch up. You can have some great food, have some great drinks. So it's just a great time. Shouts to Greta for sponsoring the show, and they're 590 King Street West, right there at King and Portland. The most important guy tonight, I'll give it to Chuck Swirsky, man. Chuck Swirsky, I'm happy you got to be celebrated in that way. I think you deserve it. I think he's somebody who brought a lot of excitement to the fan base, especially during some dark times, dark years. And I'm happy that as part of the Raptors' 30th anniversary, we were able to, show some love back to Chuck. And I know it meant a lot to him as well. So big shouts to, Mr. Salami and Cheese. I loved it. And it was a fun game. So thanks everyone for listening. Again, I appreciate everyone for tuning in here. Hit the like button on your way out. Appreciate everyone in the stream. Big shouts to everybody, leaving comments, talking to each other in the stream. I know some people are on the live streams. They don't even care what I'm saying. They just want to talk to fellow Raptor fans. I don't necessarily mind either. Just go ahead and just want to provide a space for people to hang out, hear me vent a little bit, hear me get excited about the game. But ultimately, I appreciate your support. Big thanks to producer Alex Wong, obviously, for taking those questions in the chat. And of course, thanks to all our sponsors, Betway, Tangerine, Greta Bar, Dominion Lending. And it's a tough one, but the homestand continues. Raptors play Brooklyn next. If they can't get a result against Brooklyn, I mean, we seriously are not beating the tanking allegations, but I do expect the team to play better in the future. But tonight wasn't great until the fourth quarter, when it was great. So hopefully there's more fourth quarters like that to come. So thanks everyone for listening once again. And this has been the Hello and Welcome Podcast, presented by Betway. We out.